All right, good evening, everyone. I am Town Moderator Kurt Miller, and I'll call the meeting to order of the Charter Revision Commission at 6:18 p.m. Can we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, good evening, everyone. So this is the first meeting of the newly formed Charter Revision Commission. I will be the acting chair until a permanent chair is appointed. So we'll move on to item number 3, which is appointment of a permanent chair. Can I have a nomination, please? Yeah, make sure your microphones are on.
I'd like to
Green.
nominate Tom Gardella for chairman.
Okay, is there a second to that nomination?
Second.
Okay, so a motion has been made and seconded. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Asking one last time, are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, we will close nominations, and I'll call for a vote of Tom Gardella as the permanent chair. Please signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Abstentions? So carried. At this point, Mr. Gardella, you are the chair, and I will turn the meeting over to you at item number 4.
Okay, first thing I want to say, I apologize for being late. Thank you for calling me. I had on my calendar 7 o'clock, so sorry to waste everyone's time, so we can move on. And again, I'm sorry for wasting everyone's time. Second item on the agenda is the appointment of a vice chair. And I will open up any nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Bill Peck for vice chair.
Is there a second to that nomination?
Richard.
Richard Peck.
Sorry, Richard Peck. Sorry.
Is there a second to that nomination?
I'll second.
Hearing a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing no opposes. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Welcome. Okay, item number 5 on our agenda tonight is public comment. Would anyone like to make any public comment before the commission? Second time, any public comment at all by anyone? Hearing none, I will go to comments from our first select woman.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending, and thank you for volunteering or some for this board of the Charter Revision Commission. To your right, you'll notice we have 3 younger members. They are the student body representing Seymour High School. We have the younger generation here, and I use parentheses, the younger generation here, because I think it's important for our young residents to understand how the town charter works, how government works, and for them to have a say in what is going on in their town. They will not have a vote. Their vote will not matter, but what they have to say will matter. So if the 3 of you could please introduce yourself, make sure the microphone is on, and introduce yourself, your name, your grade, and where you go to school.
So I'm Caitlin Hamilton. I'm a senior at Seymour High School.
Hi, my name is Ryan, and I'm also a senior at Seymour High School.
I'm Jeremy, and I'm a junior at Seymour High School.
Thank you. They will be here at the meetings, but they may not be able to stay through the whole meetings, as they do have school, and schoolwork is the #1 priority. At the end, I will be having you sign off, the chair and the vice chair, on a letter for them, so for their National Honor Society, for their college transcripts, as well as their school transcripts, as being part of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Not to go really off the agenda, do any of our students from Seymour High School have anything to say at all? Stand up, certainly. As you do, please state your name again, but any comments, any notations, anything you would like to bring to our attention at this point in time? What we are certainly going to allow at our meetings, any input. We would really like to hear from you. That's important. Let me give this standpoint. I was a member of the Board of Education at one time, and while I was on board, a gentleman named Fred Stanek and I, we pursued and pushed for students from Seymour High School to be non-voting members of that board. It worked, so I am very in favor of you 3 students being here. Anything you would like to say? No? That's fine.
Not at the moment.
That's fine.
Through the chairman, if I may, could I make a suggestion that we maybe add to the agenda, a section on the agenda, input from, I cannot. That's right, huh? It is a special, not add, but maybe they can put onto their agenda in the following meetings that we get to hear from the students. We have item number, 6 or something, comments from the students. I know we can't add it on now, but in going forward on the agendas, have them have a section where they can have a say.
Right, correct. Yeah, they can either, right, and tonight they can speak if they want to speak later under either public comments, if they're members of the public, or arguably commission member comments, as well as ex officio members of the commission. In the future, not a bad idea to have a special line item on your agendas for students.
That would be great. Good suggestion. Perfect. Let's have it early on the agenda so we certainly can allow them to go home and do the schoolwork. Anything else?
Yes. In your packet tonight, you'll receive suggestions from the Board of Select Persons. As you know, that the Board of Select Persons has given you the charge, this committee the charge, to look over and report on the items that we have given you. That is what you need to report back to us on as a board. But in general, the charter is a free reign for you guys to go through, the board to go through and to look through. As you know, you'll be having members from the public coming in to go over and look through it, as well as other departments coming in to give you their thoughts and their opinions on what they may feel should be changed.
Very nice.
That's all I have.
Okie dokie. Our next item on the agenda, number 7, is establishing a commission meeting schedule. So I think open it up to anyone on the,
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
yes.
just to give you a little bit of background and put this into context, I'm Brian Leclerc from the Town Attorney's Office, and I'll be your counsel for this process. I've done this before, both in Seymour and a number of other towns. So if I can just quickly go over what, as you know, you have a charter, and you are the Charter Revision Commission duly appointed by the Board of Select Persons in Seymour. What is the charter? It's basically your document that sets forth the structure of government and the responsibilities of government in Seymour, Connecticut. Think of it as your Constitution. We have the United States Constitution and the State of Connecticut Constitution. This is basically the town constitution that you will follow. So you were created by the vote of the Board of Select Persons, and they had the option to make certain recommendations to you, which they did. If you look at the agenda, there's 2 pages that follow with a number of items that all begin with the word resolved. These were voted last Tuesday evening by the Board of Select Persons as certain recommendations to you for things to consider. And again, this is only the recommendation for things to consider. They cannot tell you what side to come out on. They cannot tell you whether you need to make any changes to the charter. These are just suggestions of the various members and the body as a whole as to what you should consider. You're required, when you're setting your schedule, to have at least 2 public hearings. The first public hearing is before you begin any substantive work on the charter. The second public hearing is after you complete your draft report, but before you submit your draft report. You can have other hearings should you want to have other official public hearings. You can also amend your report after the second public hearing. Once you're done with your work and your public hearings, you have to submit a draft report to the town clerk. What the draft report, and we'll help you write that, will basically say, as we were formed, this is what we were asked to consider. This is what, if any, changes we are recommending to the charter. These are the revisions, if any, we are making to the charter. At that point, the town clerk sends it to the Board of Select Persons. The Board of Select Persons have a public hearing. The Board of Select Persons then, there's a certain window of time, but basically they have a right to recommend that you make changes. The Board of Select Persons can say, thank you for the report, but we'd like you to consider making the following change. That would come back to you for more deliberation. You don't have to do it. You could send it back just the way it was. The Board of Select Persons ultimately will have your report, which has been final, either because it was sent back to you and returned, or because they made no recommendations. It'll become final. The Board of Select Persons then has to act on it, to schedule it for a vote at an election, most likely next November's election, which means we have to be done by September, August or September of this year, this entire process, so it gets on the ballot in time. Or the Board of Select Persons could always say, thank you, but we're going to reject everything you said. Then the public can have a referendum to get it on the ballot. It gets kind of complicated, but basically think about an August, September time frame to have all of this done. The reason you want to have this on the November ballot is because you need to have 15% of the electors present at the election to make the vote count. You need to have a minimum of 15% participation. And assuming you get 15%, the bare majority at a special election, you need 8% to vote in favor of the changes for them to become effective. And we've had instances of municipalities that choose not to do November and go to a special election, and they're not always successful because you can't get the vote out. It's tough to get people out in the summer, for instance, when you need 15% of the people to come and vote on charter revision, which is no one's running for office in charter revision. So you should really plan, if you want to be effective, is to have this out in November of next year, ready for the November ballot. So it gives you a number of months, not to be rushed. But you have a lot of work to do during that period of time. We have to talk about all the recommendations. You have to come up with how you want to look at the charter, whether we're going to walk through it section by section, whether we're going to have a schedule, how you want to address the document. We'll help you by redlining, if you will. And if you're all familiar with what a red line is, that's where I take the original document and I'll add or delete things that we are talking about. So you can always have them right in front of you. If you want to delete a section, it'll be crossed out, but you can still see what was deleted. If you want to add language, we'll be typing it in as a red line so you can see the changes on one document in front of you. And that'll be kind of a working document that will continue to circulate to you after the meetings so you can see exactly what we are doing and what you've been talking about and what the proposals are to try to help you, visualize what you're doing. And again, if you have any questions at any time, you can always just reach out to me and ask at the meetings. And I'm glad to walk you through, tell you what's legal, what's not legal, what other towns do, what other towns don't do to try to guide you in the right direction and assist you in that regard. Yes? Please, Chairman.
What's, if anybody knows, the standard percentage turnout in a general election? What historically has that been?
It depends because we haven't had a very competitive general elections recently, but it's certainly more than 15%, so there should be no issue with that.
Whether or not it's contested, it's been more than 15%?
Yes.
Okay.
Just one clarification question, certainly, if anybody on the committee. Did I hear you incorrectly that once we do our thing, I'll call it, that the Board of Selectmen can, in essence, not allow it to go to the town, in essence, reject everything we've done?
They can reject your entire report.
Okay.
It's possible, but at that point, it triggers the right to a referendum. With 45 days after a vote by the Board of Select Persons to reject the proposed amendments, petition for referendum can be presented to the board to get it on the ballot. But I've never seen that happen where everything is rejected in its entirety. Usually there's it goes through.
So the Board of Selectmen, in essence, has except for your other option has total ability to reject everything we've done.
Technically, yes.
Clarification. Anyone else have any questions at all?
So just a question about the red line documents, as you were speaking about. Is there any way we can get a Word copy of this so that as we're working on it between meetings, we have the ability to do our own redlining? Thank you.
Any other members?
Do you all know what redlining is? I guess that's a
I
question.
do know what red line is myself, so.
Show you how to do that.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Anyone else on the? Okay. Let's go to the meeting schedule. Open up. What do we think as far as meeting, I should say not specific dates, but I should say specific day of the week. Any thoughts at all on this?
So I humbly request we do avoid Thursdays.
Okay.
Thursdays are really hard for me, but I can almost make any other day of the week work.
Anyone else?
And I can't make Tuesdays.
So Tuesdays are a no.
And I can't make the first and third Mondays.
Most days work fine for me.
Okay.
But again, that would depend on the time that the meeting starts as well.
And you said some Mondays you can't, okay. Knowing that certainly on certain Mondays, holidays usually hit on Monday, so lots of times it's gonna be a no. Anyone else? Bad days, because now we have a Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, or bad days. So we go to Wednesday and Friday, and Friday is always dubious, as we know in the business world and the real world. Does that bring us down to maybe Wednesday?
Looks like it.
The only thing we need to consider is what the first selectwoman had said about Mondays and Wednesdays going into budget season. And what, is it every Monday and Wednesday through what month?
We would,
To the,
I was just saying through you, Mr. Chairman, we would meet in the Flaherty room.
The Flaherty room, right? Which is right down the hallway.
Or we could meet at the library community center. If the date, getting the committee there is what's most important. We can find a meeting facility that would house enough space. You may not be, you're more than likely not going to be in this room, though. So,
If we're, do you think we want to keep the time 6 o'clock still? 'Cause those days work for me as long as it's still 6 to 7. I don't think there's any conflicts.
Except for someone stupid like me. that doesn't show up. So are we looking at Wednesdays at 6 o'clock? Is that what we're coming to?
Well, I think we need to clarify, are we meeting weekly, are we meeting monthly? I mean, that's.
Okay, since we have the
Because
day, Yeah.
that changes.
excellent point. Since we think we honed down maybe into the day of the week, how about number of times we meet? Not every week probably, but how many times a month, say, how
Probably
often?
twice, right? I would say twice a month, right? So we should target every other week, is
Okay.
my opinion. Especially at the beginning, right, where we're ramping up.
Okay. Is everyone thinking every other Wednesday? Any thoughts on that? Any, let's say, pitfalls that, whoops, that may not work? Anything at all? Let's
Well, I
bring it
wouldn't
up.
say every other, I would pick two specific, because you may have a 5-week month where every other sends that off. So if you say first and third Wednesday, or second and fourth Wednesday, then it's more definitive.
So you have a less of a chance of running into conflicts. For instance, your Board of Police Commissioners is the second Wednesday. Your Board of Select Persons is the first and third Tuesday, regardless of how many Tuesdays there are in the month.
All right, okay. Excellent suggestions.
I
So if
think
we do
if we
first
go
and third, we'll wait.
First and third. I heard someone say first and third. What do we think?
I would say second and third, if anybody,
Second and third makes.
yeah.
second and fourth, only because then you're not in the same week, and in the event that we're going to be asking the department heads to put anything together for us, so they're not loaded with Board of Select Person and us and everything else they have to prepare.
I agree.
You always,
Yes,
you
it
always
would.
have a fourth Tuesday. You always
Yeah.
have a fourth Wednesday. You're going to have
Yeah.
to, I think, even,
You do.
it's possible not to.
I don't know. Thoughts on that?
Works for me. Second and fourth works for me.
What night, what Wednesday did you say the police commission met?
But I just gave that as an example, but
Second.
Yeah.
that's the second.
Yeah, police commission's on the 2nd at 6:30.
Does that look okay
I'll make it work.
from a schedule perspective? Well, for the town and for you, Brian, definitely for you, Brian.
I will make it work. I usually cover the police commission, but I'll make that. And I'd ask for select.
I mean, the only thing I see on the first Wednesday of the month is the Board of Finance workshops.
What were we saying, second and fourth?
Second and fourth.
Well, we just talked about it, but the second is the police commissioners, meeting, the second Wednesday. Whatever works for this board.
If, through you, Mr. Chairman, if Wednesday is the best day, I would recommend the 2nd and the 4th, simply because if your first meeting needs to be a public hearing, you would not be able to have that scheduled in time for the first Wednesday in February.
Which is next week.
Correct.
And I'm out of town next week, so that makes it even worse.
And these initial meetings with that schedule will probably be in the Flaherty room or elsewhere.
Are we down to second and fourth Wednesday?
Mhm.
Is that what we're down to? And whoops is on that.
That could work for me.
For selectmen,
I can make
any
that
whoopses you think on the second and fourth? You're certainly closer to some of the situations in the town than this commission is, you know. Look for your input.
No, I mean, the only oops I see is the police
Yeah,
commissioners.
that's the one I see too.
Then police commissioners meet in the PD, so it won't be a scheduling issue for rooms. And if there's need for police input, we can just schedule around that.
But it also might be a conflict for people who attend those meetings as well. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to have it on a Wednesday. You could have it on a second Tuesday and a fourth Wednesday. I mean, you don't have to get stuck on a particular day.
It's good thinking there.
Except
Every once in a while, I can get one out.
It's good. So you meet on the second Tuesday, which still gives you enough time for a public hearing. That's off to me. And then the fourth Wednesday.
That works with me. Still 6 o'clock then?
And I can make that Tuesday work.
Second Tuesday, fourth Wednesday.
Okay, we're going on, Madam. Go.
It has to work for your board. You're the board. Me being there or, and the attorney, but me being there doesn't matter. I'm only here as a,
I can make that, I can make the second Tuesday monthly work. The Wednesdays will always work, so I have no issue with that.
When do you select when boards meet? Don't we
the
have a
board of
Tuesday?
select person meets the first and third Tuesday of every month.
Okay, fine, okay. Okay, it appears as though what we have on the table is the second Tuesday and the fourth Wednesday at 6 o'clock. In this room, unless it's unavailable. Then we'll
This
go
room-
to the Flaherty room.
This room should be available, Mr. Chairman.
Except for the Wednesday. During the month of February, due to, budget.
Yeah, we can move people around. Yeah.
And that will miss your 2 February holidays, Lincoln and President's.
We only have one day off in February.
Valentine's Day?
We're not the court system.
State, right?
So, Mr. Chairman, for your motion, I would say 6 p.m. in the Norma Drummer Room of Seymour Town Hall. And if there is a conflict at that point, we'll just properly notice it in advance. Make sure everyone is aware.
Taking that suggestion. Okay, is there any motion to be made by any member of the commission at this point in time
I move that the Charter Revision Committee meet the second Tuesday and fourth Wednesday of the month at 6 p.m. in the Norma Drummer Room.
I second that.
I second that as well.
All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is carried.
And through you, Mr. Chairman, I would ask for a motion to set your public hearing at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, February 11th, in the normal drummer room of Seymour Town Hall.
Do I hear a motion to that effect?
Do
Yes.
we,
Go ahead.
just for clarification, do we need to have that in advance of the regular meeting? Like our other public hearings are, for, say, planning and zoning, where we have it 6:30?
Yes.
Okay. So we have to
We'll
have
do
it.
that first, and then we'll, yeah.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we set the public hearing for February 11th, 2025.
At 6 p.m.
Yes.
Well, that's the question, because our meeting is going to be at 6 p.m. Usually we hold a public hearing prior to that.
Well, we'll hold it at 6 p.m., then we'll continue.
You will
the
just,
meeting
yeah,
after
Okay.
that.
you'll just, the meeting
So-
will begin, we'll
Right, I
have the
understand.
agenda, but the meeting to begin after
Right.
public hearing.
Exactly.
That's why I was asking for clarification
Yeah.
based on other committees.
Motion's made. Is it seconded?
I'll second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion is carried. Okay, now we have review of the recommendations from the Board of Selectmen. Okay, has everyone had the chance to read this over in detail?
Yes.
Are we ready, just as a board, to our commission, to start reviewing it at this moment in time? Take input from all members on this.
No, I've not seen the list.
Okay, we got
I've
one.
read through it.
I've seen this, but I've not seen the recommendation.
So, through you, Mr. Chairman, these were all included in the packet that went out last week. So the two pages of resolved, those are the questions that need to be considered from the Board of Select Persons. The rest of the information are the notes that each select person presented. So we wanted to make sure that you had those, just to give background, and then it also may trigger discussion or thoughts from the committee, and we wanted to make sure that the selectmen's opinions were at least given to you folks for initial consideration.
Okay, I will go back to, are we ready? I have not seen it. How
Just
about
test the agenda. Right, you can't mix it up.
any other input by members? Are we ready to do this? I mean, certainly as it hasn't been read, then I'm going to leave it to discretion of how we proceed.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're required to have your public hearing before you begin your substantive work on this. So, I think what you should do is, and what we did is we assisted the Board of Select Persons by looking at everything that they recommended on their various emails and memos and put them into little silos. Some of them would have one person in the silo, others might have 2 or 3 people in the silo to come up with these resolutions encompassing everything. So the resolutions are kind of a summary of everything that was suggested by the individual members and then as voted on by the Board of Select Persons. So I think you have to kind of read those, put them in the back of your mind as you read through the charter and try to really get your arms around the charter. Because there's some complex sections of it, specifically your budget process is very complex and the way it's structured right now, and you're purchasing something to read through carefully a few times to kind of see where it goes right now. So you understand that, because that's one of the recommendations, for example. Some of them are going to be easy, some are going to be harder to address and to look at. But that's what I would suggest, is read these and then really spend some quality time reading the charter and studying.
One thing that kept coming up as I was reviewing the charter, and it's also indicated in here, and I was wondering if we could get a copy of, or how we know, because it's not, so we're reviewing the charter, and one of the items that needs to be reviewed is the fact that the state statute isn't specified, or the specific state statute in each of the areas that it's referring. So will you be guiding us as to the state statutes that need to be referred to?
That's what we'll do, because and that's what you have to look at. You you can have your charter, which is the constitution for the town, and that's the law of the town. Not the law is a bad example. You have ordinances. That's the rule structure of the town. But the charter of the town cannot be inconsistent with either the U.S. Constitution, the state of Connecticut Constitution, or the state general statutes. So those three trump you with a small t. They sit above your charter. The U.S. Constitution, state statute. Then comes your charter. And that controls over your ordinances or anything else. So we'll help you with that. We'll tell you if there's a proposal, for instance, just to make something up, we want to make sure that it's, change the minority representation requirement. Well, that's by state statute. You don't have a lot of choice. Certain things, the number of members on a certain board and commission, some of them are required by statute, a minimum number, so you can't go contrary to the statute on those things. So we'll kind of guide you through that process to let you know. You don't have to study the statutes. That's why we're there.
So our charter can't be any more restrictive than the state or...
It can't be in conflict with it. If the state statute says that the town, must do something, you cannot say we will not do that. But if the state statute says you must have a dog catcher, pick up just a bizarre example. Well, you can then structure one and then structure it a little differently, make it more restrictive, the duties, as long as you have that. But you can't be inconsistent. It's hard to describe that. You'll see it as we go along. You can't conflict with it, but you can do things that you're allowed to do under the general powers you have under Title VII of the statutes. You have a lot of power running a municipality. You just can't be contrary to state minimums or state maximums or state requirements.
So the other major thing that's on the table as far as something to consider is how the town is structured as far as its governance. Would that, so I imagine that is kind of trumps everything, because if you're restructuring the town governance, it restructures the entire charter?
Well,
Yes and no?
Governance, you have a Board of Finance, first select woman, a Board of Select Persons form of government right now. Towns and cities have different forms of government. You have mayoral forms of government with a mayor, a council, no Board of Finance. You have representative town meeting form of governments with, Fairfield, Greenwich, and Darien, I believe, for example, where you have a first select person, Board of Select Person, representative town meeting, which is 400 something people, like 435 in Greenwich. I think we're at 100 now in Fairfield or something like that, 50 or 100. And a Board of Finance. You can have other towns, like I said, that don't have Board of Finances. You can have towns that have a town manager form of government with a mayor and a council, no Board of Finance, or there's a number of variations that we could talk about how you can do that. And that it'll affect some things, but not everything. You'll probably have your same structures for your zoning, police commission, things that are required, health, things that are required by the state statutes. But then we'd have to put the other pieces in. If you switch your form of government, how's that going to affect your entire budget process you have here? And it could easily affect that whole process as you have it. So, yeah.
And what do we think the adoption rate will be by the town? I mean, we've been through this once
You've been through it,
before.
and you've seen the numbers from last time. Yeah.
It didn't work.
Mhm.
We're trying again. Where do we hope this is going to lead? Like, do we really believe that the people are going to want this change?
Well, I think that it's kind of proposing, not critical review, proposing a hypothetical question which certainly does not have the answer to. I think that we as the commission do our best job, put it before the board, because they can the board can overrule us. However, put it before the board, put it before the town, we do our best job, let chips fall as they may. What's going to happen? I have no idea. And to make a hypothetical situation is like, I don't know.
So in all my experience in anything that was a revision to charters, policies, procedures, anything along those lines, the reason that it tends to be rejected is because we don't explain the why or the benefit of it. And just putting something out there that's a change without a justification for why or what the benefit's going to be to that change people will by nature reject it. So as we start thinking about what revisions, if any, we're going to make, in our minds, we have to have that justification, that clarification, so when we're challenged with it, we can stand up to it. And I think that's the biggest issue.
True, and I think it's going to be up to us to find a way of letting the public know. As we know, we're going to have 2 public hearings. How am I going to show up? I have no idea. How many interested? I have no idea. But when we get it to our townspeople to vote, they're going to see something. Oh, I don't want to do that. How do we do it? It's going to be our challenge. Let's think of a way that we can get it out to the people of what we've done. And perfect question, why? That's what we have to get. Otherwise, they're going, I don't want to vote for that, for whatever reason. Don't know.
And that's what we should be asking ourselves as we're looking at anything that we're going to redline. Internally, we should be asking ourselves why.
Excellent.
Because if we can't answer that question, we can't provide that answer.
That's sound advice. Change for the sake of change will never work. And just because you have the opportunity to revise the charter doesn't mean that you should revise every section, because if it's not broke, nothing to fix. To change something just because it's always been that way. Look at the U.S. Constitution. You know, it's been that way hundreds of years. So that's something to think about before you
An
just...
excellent point is that everything we do, we should say, why? Why are we doing this? And even something coming from the resolve of the select board, first thing we should be asking, why? Why should we do this? And why should we make these changes? If we can't justify it to the members of this commission, then let's move on to something else. Okay, did I understand that we have to have the public hearing before we can do the resolves? Is that what I heard?
Before you can start any substantive work.
Okay, okay. So we can kind of go through some of the resolves tonight, get some thoughts on it, and that would not be really substantive. Is that the opinion of council?
I
Or
wouldn't
is
get
it?
too deep in it because,
Okay.
you know, especially if you all haven't read it. I mean, these are, we could read what they say, then unless and until you read the charter, we actually have it in front of us, either on your laptops, your tablets, or on paper. That becomes substantive very quickly if we start talking about these changes.
Okay, good. That's what I thought I was hearing, but I didn't want to, in fact, misinterpret.
This is really your organizational meeting to have everyone meet
Okay.
each other. I take it you all know each other introduction-wise.
No.
No, we don't.
Maybe that's something you don't tell who we are, too.
Yeah, if I wasn't late, we would have done it.
That's why you're chairman, because you were late.
Because I was late, yes. And we're sitting going,
You left that empty seat in the middle.
Your teachers probably don't like that, huh? Okay, I think we should all introduce ourselves and maybe give a very brief background on themselves, maybe why you're on this particular commission.
We were all late too.
Really?
We won't miss another meeting. You know.
Please. I'm not the only bad person. So yeah, we should have started out maybe at the beginning to introduce ourselves, why in fact we have the interest and why we're here, and maybe some background information of prior service is maybe it's the right idea, prior involvement within the town of Seymour, what you've done and your interests. So,
My name is John Stolma. I grew up in Timor as a child, moved away after high school and college, and returned about 10 years ago. And I've always been interested in other places that I've lived in, being involved in the community, and trying to make it a better place for the people that are living in the community than before I got there. And that's been my premise for many places that I've moved in the interim between my childhood here and my adulthood here.
very good, John.
My name's Kevin Atterbury. Fairly new to Seymour. Bought a house here 3 years ago. Didn't know anything about it before I moved here, and absolutely love it. So I plan on being here for a very long time. And soon after getting here, me and my partner both got involved in some local community groups and also the Democratic Town Committee. Done a lot of events with Anne Marie. We had like a Juneteenth event here, and do a lot of this group called All In for Seymour. And heard about this opportunity and really wanted to get involved just to learn more, you know, because I come sometimes after some of the other community meetings, watch like the Board of Select Persons meetings, and always hear a lot about the charter. So I thought it was really fascinating to get an opportunity to look over the whole thing, really know how the town works.
Excellent, thank you.
So, my name is John Lombardo. Been resident of Seymour for about 30 years now. We moved up from Manhattan. We selected Seymour. We had like the whole west half of the state to decide from, and we picked this town. Currently the owner of Bushy Bond Martial Arts and Fitness in Seymour. I started getting actively involved about 2 years ago in some of the youth programs and stuff for Kindness Day and anti-bullying stuff, and I'm just getting a little bit more and more involved. And in some of my discussions with Anne Marie, she had recommended that we look at some of the other stuff and just get a little bit more. So this one kind of intrigued me a little bit. So I was happy to volunteer to be considered for part of it. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Thank you. My name is Tom Gardella, except I moved from Ansonia to Seymour when I was 5 years old. I've been here ever since. Brief time going to college and at University of Connecticut, was not here since 4 years. But moving back to here, I've actually been involved with the town of Seymour for almost my entire adult life. I was going back, I was assistant town treasurer at one time under a gentleman named Dan Brandon, if anybody remembers him. Financial advisor to him, financial advisor to Dan Brandon. I was vice chair of the Board of Education. I guess I was on the board for maybe 10 years. And I was chairman of the Board of Fire Commissioners for 10 years, captain of Citizens Engine Company, and also a founding member of the Seymour Ambulance Corps. I guess us five charter members. We did that when I was 17 years old. I signed the charter. I don't even know if I could have signed it when I was 17 years old, but whatever. We have the Seymour Ambulance Corps. I briefly, I would say, for a period of time, had not get involved in anything to do with politics or anything with the town. I became a federal agent, and under the Hatch Act, I really could not be involved anymore. That's federal law, if anybody understands. You cannot be involved in politics, anything that is an election. So Washington told me, I fought Washington and said, I want to do it. No, you have to get off the Board of Ed. You can't run again. So I didn't run again. But anyway, that's my interest, that's my background, and I will move to my right.
Well, thank you, Tom. Great background. I'm Richard Peck. I've been in Seymour for a little bit over 20 years now. Like you, stayed away from government for a little bit of time, but found that community involvement was something that sparked my interest. I've been the chairman of the board and international president of a global nonprofit organization, have extensive experience in writing policy procedures and reviewing those documents, serve as on the Republican Town Committee as well as Planning and Zoning, and just looking forward to seeing what we can do to continue to move this town into the future. You know, I think, as our attorney said, change for the sake of change doesn't solve anything. Change to be progressive and move us forward is what we need to do. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do in this charter revision, if anything, that will move us into the future and continue us moving forward.
Thank you.
My name is Naveen Madavala. I've lived in Seymour my whole life. Only for 25 years, though. Went to...
Young is good.
Right. Went to Central Connecticut for journalism, for sports journalism, but journalism was the actual major. But, yeah, this is the first time I've ever done anything like this. So I was never really too interested in politics, but I thought this was a good first step in the door. Try to figure out some more how to learn about the town and whatnot. So yeah, looking forward to it.
My name's Tara Miller. I moved to Seymour 5 years before Naveed was born. Naveed and my son actually went to Seymour schools together, played soccer together, right?
Yep.
Yeah. But moved down here 30 years ago. Was in HR for 12 years, human resources, and then so policies and procedures are just kind of in my brain. and then took some time off, and now I've been working for the town of Seymour for 10 years in working for the community services department. In senior rec, we had library under us for a little bit, so I know a little bit of the workings of a lot of different departments. Work with the Parks Department and also with Public Works on that. So looking forward to getting into the nitty gritty and see how and if we can improve some of that.
Thank you.
Chairman, I'm Brian LeClaire. I'm a partner with Bertram Moses. Been practicing 38 years now. And we serve as town attorney to a number of cities and towns in Connecticut, from the biggest to some of the smallest, in many forms of government. Myself, I've always been involved in government. In the past, I was on the RTM of my town, which is like the legislative body. I was the moderator, and then I was the majority leader. I did a pivot at one point. I got on the zoning commission, became the chairman of that. So I have a lot of firsthand experience, as well as all the various cities and towns, again, that our department represents. It varies just about every form of government you can have. We provide legal services in those forms, in those towns. So where there is a resource for you, a way to assist you.
Thank you.
I'm Kurt Miller. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer of Seymour. I used to be the Chairman of the Board of Finance and was the first selectman for 10.5 years. My role, I was asked by the first selectwoman to support this committee. So whatever you need, whether it be scheduling of people to come in to speak, I'll also take the minutes. But just to make something very clear, I will only speak if asked a specific question with regards to the charter, because we need to make sure that the administration is not having undue weight on this. I will jump in if there is a procedural issue or question or concern to make a correction to that. But when it comes to the actual charter itself, I won't respond or make comment unless specifically asked a question. So.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to, my favorite is working with school children. Why don't you state your name for our commission also, and your interest, and why, in fact, you're here, except if someone forced you to be here. Why, in fact, you are here and your interest.
So I'm Caitlin Hamilton. I'm a senior at Seymour High School. I was offered up by our Vice Principal, Lucky. I'm the senior representative for the Seymour Board of Ed, so I have a bit of, knowledge of sitting through very long meetings. But overall, I have an interest in just seeing how the town works. I've worked for the elections for the past 2 years, I believe, in November this and last year, and then also their spring one last year. And yeah, I just like to see how everything works, and I'm interested to see how this goes.
Excellent.
Hi, my name is Ryan, and I'm a senior at Seymour High School. So a lot of my background at school is in leadership positions, so I've done a lot with sports. I was big in volleyball, and I do tennis also at the high school. But over the summer, I had the experience to go to Girls State, and it really helped me, I guess, get more into government. I always knew that I wanted to go be a lawyer, but now after that experience, I think I'm looking towards more like contractual law, so it's always good to have like a background in government when you're looking to study something like that.
I'm Jeremy Tomaszewski. I'm a junior here at Seymour High School, but I'm the junior representative for the Board of Education. I'm into sports a lot. I swim myself, but I run the school sports page, social media on Instagram and Facebook. But I really just like to know, figure out what's going on around, because I'm new here, so I'd like to know what's going on around town.
Very nice. I want to reiterate, because I hear you are at Board of Ed meetings. As I said, Fred Stanek and I pushed for that, and it was successful, and it's still going. That's great. Certainly, during the meetings, you're part of this, can't vote, understand that, but you are part of this group. Don't feel as though you're not maybe sitting here, you input. I love input of younger people.
Right.
Kind of opens the eyes of us old people like me that, hey, wow, yeah, really?
Yeah.
So your input is more than welcome. You're part of this group. Don't feel whether you're not.
Thank you for that.
Super. Okay, I think we established the fact that we were not really going to delve into the resolves by our board. I think we decided not to after the notations by our council, so I don't think we should. Okay, now we have item number 9 on the agenda. I'm not quite sure, hearing what council said, discussion and possible action regarding review of the town charter. I don't know that we can do that listening to council, being if we can't look at the resolves, how can we do number 9?
We can,
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that was just after the discussion of town council to set the public hearing. So it was just a procedural step. in
Oh,
that,
okay,
which
thank you very
you
much.
guys
So
accomplished
we've done
during
that.
the-
Okay, great.
But
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I also think it can be viewed as, how do we want to look at the charter going forward? Are we going to do it step by step? Are we going to do it, in blocks going forward? Are we going to have certain commission members, a group of commission members look at certain parts of the charter? So how does that look from a
Excellent.
commission standpoint?
Excellent.
Actually, I had a question just about kind of the rules and regulations about our communication. Are we allowed to discuss or talk about this outside of these meetings? Can we, I like using a lot of technology, a lot of digital things, are we allowed to have like a Slack channel or something where you can say like, oh, hey, did you review this? Or is it everything's getting done when we meet these 2 meetings every month, and then outside of that, that's it?
That's a great
Tell
question.
me if I'm wrong, by council, is that certainly you can discuss with the public. I think our note, and however it would be, there cannot be 4 members of this commission. How many are? Okay, you cannot have a quorum being a majority sit and discuss it, because that becomes a meeting, which would violate FOI. You cannot do that. But there's no reason why you can't talk to your neighbor. I mean, you're doing a one-on-one, as long as there's not 4 people there. I see no reason why you can't do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what a Slack channel, Slack,
Yeah, so like a,
whatever that is. I'm not sure.
just think like a group message. Like if we were all had, so if we were like, oh, hey, I was reviewing this, did you guys notice this or check it out? And like,
Yeah,
something all of us would receive.
No, you can't do that because under the Freedom of Information Act, the state's blue sky law, the public's business must be done in the public domain. So you cannot do that. The only time you can communicate to each other is if, for example, the chairman sent an email, hey guys, I just noticed that next Tuesday is a holiday. I'm going to call a special meeting for Wednesday. If you're available, are you available? That's about the only thing you could talk about, scheduling things like that. Or folks, just to let you know, it's snowing really heavy. I'm canceling tonight's meeting. You can't respond, great idea, because I hate what we're going to talk about, because I don't think we should. Well, that's substantive. You're getting into that. That has now become an illegal meeting because it's not done in the public eye. No texting, no emails, no talking to each other on the phone, the whole body at once like that. You really should do it here as a group so everyone can.
I still may be confused on, you were indicating talking to friends or no? What were you saying? No, what were you saying?
It was
Clarify
more
that.
a question about our communication. Like if basically any communication or work we're doing would have to be done, anything substantial during these meetings, outside of them, because when you're talking about how we're going to be looking at it, right, depending on how much time, we can see, all right, well, if we can only really do anything substantial, like during our meeting times, then we kind of know how much time we have to work with our deadline, so we can figure out, okay, yeah, maybe we do figure out what's the best way. Maybe it is kind of divide and conquer, or going through it and just kind of seeing, I guess, the most efficient way to use our time. Because if we're able to, like, okay, we're meeting, now we can set some things we can still discuss between the next meeting, that would kind of change.
Okay, now
how
I'm
much
clear
time
what
we
you're
have
saying. Certainly what council said, if I were to call you up and say, hey, Kevin, what do you think we should
Yeah.
do? Well, that becomes a real problem. And if 4 people are doing it, it becomes an absolutely capital offense, FOI. You're having a meeting.
Yeah.
So I guess the answer, no. You talk to your neighbor. I talk to your neighbor, don't call me.
No. Yeah, it was more just figuring out, like, how much time do we have?
Yeah,
Can
it's-
we,
You run into that risk of calling up and saying, hey, I was reviewing section 3.3. I interpret it this way. How do you see it? Then it becomes a big issue at that.
speaking of time,
If there's just 2 of you, you can do that, right? It's just be careful.
Yep.
Don't
Yeah.
become group meetings, and you can jump on this different ways. I've had commissions that, they decide what we're going to talk about at the next meeting, so everyone has their homework. Where we're going to read section 1 of the charter. Next week we'll do section 2, section 3 and 4 together because they're small. They break it up that way. Other charter commissions will just take up general topics that may pop up in various locations. It all depends how you want to do it. You could turn this. I've had commissions that have met weekly for month after month in excruciating detail, or you could take spend as much time as required on this, and it could be a lot of time, depending on what level you get to with rewriting it. If that's what you want to do.
So that was going to be my kind of next point is how long do we anticipate these meetings lasting? So we start at 6. How long do we feel we want these meetings to last so that we all have lives and supper to return to?
I love that idea because I've been in public meetings, run Board of Ed, so forth and so on. Sometimes they get out of hand. I think you have a good point. Do we want to put a stop time? Like, okay, it's 7:45. It's not 7:45. But, hey, we need to wrap these meetings up by X time and slow the meeting down and say, we're done. That's a good point. What do you think? We don't want to be here till 11, 12 o'clock at night going on and on, especially with some of the stuff that we are going to review.
There's a point of diminishing return where decisions that are made are not the best decisions at the time. So if you let a meeting last too long, you will start making decisions to get the meeting over with. And those are not the right times to make decisions. So capping a meeting at no more than 2 hours, and 2 hours is a long meeting, especially when you're delving into things like this, would be as far as I think you would want to go, because you're going to start getting to a point where you're not going to get valued information on that meeting.
Good point. Do we want to say an unofficial rule? It's in the public, that's what I'm saying, is that we wrap our meetings up, say, at 8 o'clock. Does that sound unreasonable? 2 hours? And then-
I think we should, I think we should target 90 minutes, because whatever you target, you gotta have a buffer over it. So if we really want to be done in 2 hours, then we gotta kind of target to wrap it up in 90 minutes.
Good point.
And that way, if we do go over 10, 15 minutes, we're still done in 2 hours.
Yeah, I'll take the responsibility as the chair to, as we approach that 90 minutes, we're going to go to 2 hours, be careful, to in essence, nicely, with diplomacy, say, we're going to start moving forward. I would probably, in order to do that, let's say we have an agenda of 10 items. We're at number 5. I think that at that point in time, we can make motions to move forward. I don't know that we can. Help me out, Council, is we have 5 other items on the agenda to not take them up. Can we not do that?
No, we're going to keep your agenda basically to work on revisions to the charter. We're not going to
Okay.
lock you in that you must talk
Yeah.
about this section.
Okay,
We'll give you the flexibility to decide, so you're not hamstrung.
okay. And I'll take the responsibility of making sure that we're out of here, okay? And slow the meeting, or push the meeting forward and say, we're done.
And the first Selectwoman's office will assist you in, in the agendas, getting them out, and Mr. Miller will do that to make sure they're out, published accordingly under the Freedom of Information Act. They have the proper items in them to have a legitimate public hearing and/or meeting. So that's not
Okay.
going to all be left on you.
I don't think we need a motion on that, but that by consensus, feel that we'll, no later than 8 o'clock to the best of an hour and a half, 7:30 to start trailing these meetings down.
Yeah.
Great ideas. By consensus, we'll do that. Okay. Okay, we did, you had indicated that in fact, Rich, we can take and maybe look at some of the administrative way we're going to approach our mandate. I think that was a good idea. It's 7:16 right now, and maybe we go by our newly consensus that we're out of here on or before 8 o'clock.
Yeah, so, but the question is, where are we going to go at that point? What are we looking to accomplish here? And at this point, a lot of people haven't read the resolves yet, and we can't start any substantive work anyhow. So the question may be to state for the next meeting, after public hearing, we are going to start reviewing these areas of the charter and set that as a goal, leaving tonight's meeting. Say, these are the items we're going to review. Are we going to start looking at the resolves first and then look at the remainder of the charter? Or are we going to start the charter at section 1 and work our way forward through that? And what is the chair's decision at that point as moving forward? Because I think discussion right now would just be discussion for the sake of discussion, would not be discussion to gain knowledge out of it. Because we've heard that some individuals haven't read the entire package, or some may have.
Good point. I think that in understanding what you're saying is that we're gonna have our public hearing, we know that, at 6 o'clock, and we'll have our meeting right after that. I think, do we make it, and maybe it's really put on the agenda, that all courtesy to our board, being that we have a bunch of resolves, and then we go at those resolves at the next meeting and see where it goes. And that we put that on the agenda. Does that sound like a reasonable direction? We have our public, and whatever the public hearing is gonna be, I have no idea what's gonna say. And then from there, the first thing next on our agenda, appropriately Kirk putting it in the right spot, is that our first thing is gonna be to look at the resolves from our board. And that'd be number one.
So I have a different opinion on
Let's
that,
hear it.
right? So I think we can review them and discuss them, read them through, right? I've read some of them while we were discussing here, and some of these are easy and some of these are a little bit more complex. I think we need to go through the whole thing, right? At some
Define
point.
the whole thing, I'm
The
sorry.
charter. We need to at least look at everything in the charter. In our time frame, we have to look at the charter, right? But what I would like to do is plug these resolves in as discussion items into the section that they apply to. And then as we go through, maybe we could do those sections first and go to others. But I think we should plug them in. Some of them actually, they reference the section that they are. Some of these are housekeeping, meaning, you know, the grammatical error ones, things like that, or quick wins. And it's like, okay, we're gonna move forward and say we don't want any spelling errors and grammatical errors in our charter. Okay, great, we can move on from there. But if we plug them where they belong, as we go through it, we're gonna be addressing them, as opposed to addressing them en masse.
You're gonna find the grammatical error ones and the gender items and all that are gonna be the biggest sticking point going forward.
I was gonna
Absolutely
say, I
are.
think the grammatical didn't pass the last go around.
That's right, yeah.
I think there was a grammatical error.
Who
in
put the
in
comma in the, who
one.
put,
So
who
I
put the
think-
comma in the wrong
I
spot?
think the comma.
I second John's approach on that. I was actually going to suggest that as well. I like the idea of reviewing the whole document, but focusing in each section on the resolves that the first select persons want us to focus on. So I think it would also help us provide contextual to each of the resolves, because there are some things prior to the resolves and after the resolves that might pertain to each one. So.
And there are some resolves that apply to the entire document, or a majority of the document as you review it.
Yep.
I just think it gives us structure, right?
Yep.
So I think we need a structured way of doing it. So if we're going to go through, we need to look at the whole thing. I think we owe it as the commission to say that we've reviewed the entire document, but there are pieces we have to dive in deeper because there have been resolves or recommendations from the public or somewhere to look at those. And so we need to plug them into that when we get to that section, and we can reorder it anytime we want. Say, okay, we're going to skip these 3 sections. We're going to go here. We can do whatever we agree to do. But if we plug the suggestions and the resolves into those places when we get to it, that's when we discuss
And
it. As opposed to going all over the place. Otherwise, I think you're going to be very bouncing around and disjointed, and I think we're going to lose that context.
I agree. And now the project manager in me is coming out and saying, okay, how many meetings do we have between now and the time that we need to have this posted? How many sections do we have to review? And how long is it going to take to write the final document? So that as we're going forward, we're saying, okay, we need to review a minimum of this number of sections in order to progress through all of them. And I see the attorney has got his fingers and toes going over there to
So
count them
so
up.
what I left out. So the funny thing is, what I left out in my bio is that, I teach karate for fun, but I am a program project manager.
Yeah,
for
so am I.
the 3rd largest investment bank on the planet. So.
Yeah.
So structure matters.
Yep.
To me,
Yep.
we got to do it in order.
Can you just clarify, are you indicating that we all go home, read the entire charter, and I think maybe I'm misinterpreting, read the entire charter, then we come back together and then say, okay, this is what we should look at, this is where we should go?
No. What
Okay,
I'm
what
saying
were you
is,
saying?
what
I'm
I'm
sorry.
saying is, so here's one right here, right? So this resolve references references us to consider it in review of section 6.1.
Okay, gotcha.
So we're going to discuss this when we get to 6.1.
I agree.
Instead of going through all the resolves.
We're going to plug them where they belong. If they're an all-encompassing one, we talk about that. This is an all-encompassing one. If it references a specific section that has to be reviewed, then we can order them and say, okay, we're going to review and we're going to go here, as opposed to going down the list and saying, okay, well now I got to look at 6.1 and now I got to look at 4.5. I think
And-
we tag them to whatever appropriate section it is, and then we can decide if we want to go from the first section to the end, or we want to reorder it and say, okay, we're going to go to the structure, or we're not, or we're going to go around, we're going to talk about commissions, or we're going to talk about the board, or we're going to talk about the budget. We can pick those pieces and take those subsections out and do it, but the resolves would get discussed when we're doing that section.
So you're indicating we start section by section with the charter, and then have in mind certainly the resolves, and also I think other resolves, not resolves, there were other notations by people on the board that we also take that into consideration, because I think we have to respect anybody on the board saying, and this is some of the verbiage that's in fact here, you don't have it in front of you, maybe
Right.
not, but some of the verbiage from the board, some of their thoughts, that we interject that
In that discussion.
in that session. Of course, we want to read everything the board has indicated.
Right,
Okay.
so- and we may get other recommendations from the public or from wherever, and those have to plug, wherever they apply, we need to plug them in when we're talking about that section. Just to have structure
Yeah.
and go
And-
through it, not to minimize the discussion, maximize it, take in everybody's opinion, all comments, but don't bounce around. If we just go through the results, we're gonna be bouncing around the document all the way through, and I don't think that is gonna be productive, given the limited time we have to do
So we
this.
would take, next meeting, we would take section by section and see how far we get. Because we're certainly not going to go past the 7:30/8 o'clock. We're at section X. Well, we got to stop it here because it's going to go crazy for the
Yeah.
night, understanding that.
And I would kind of take that the step further is the first meeting would be planning out the attack of how many chapters are we going to go through? And doing rough math, right? There's 18 chapters. We have, 9 months, 2 chapters a month,
Good point.
divided by 2 meetings, a month. So really it's a chapter a week, a chapter a meeting, and then each meeting we attack whatever that resolve is, review whatever the comments are, and then, maybe we attack a little bit more, and then, because we're gonna need a couple for public comment and a couple for another public hearing, and then also to write our resolve, so.
Yeah, I think that's a month right there.
Yeah,
That's-
exactly.
You're gonna knock that one off the
we
month.
might have to back that to three chapters a
Right.
meeting or
Because if
whatever
it has
a
to be
month.
voted on in 9
There's-
months, that means it's gotta
There's
be done
nothing,
probably
Right.
closer in like
Right.
7.
well, there's nothing here, right, that's, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, there's nothing that's gonna stop us individually of saying, okay, going here and as we review these on ourselves and saying, okay, well, this is a whole document. And this is section 16.1, this
Yeah.
is section 14.3, and know where they go. So at our next meeting, while we're doing that, saying,
Right.
okay, as we go through, we're gonna do this, okay, is there anything on this resolve list that falls into this chapter?
Yep,
Yes or no? If not, then we can look at that chapter, go through it and
Yep.
say, okay, we're gonna do anything to it, yes or no?
yeah.
And anything of the select board has indicated also.
Yeah.
All our homework will be, make sure we read everything the select board has said, because I respect them. And also any resolves, and be ready to, hey, there was something by, I'll pick on Fred Stanek, he is a friend of mine. Hey, Fred said this, maybe we should go look here, because he said that, and we'll just look at that specifically. Does that sound reasonable?
I agree
Yeah.
with that, because it has tie-ins, what their opinions are gonna tie in with some of those results that we're gonna be working on.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I think it goes hand in hand.
No, I agree. I just, we just gotta go through it in an orderly fashion is what I'm really trying to get at, right? We gotta go through it and plug stuff in as opposed to bouncing around.
And that's why I asked for a Word version of this document, because if you're doing a search to change something, say you're changing first select person, first select person, you can do a find on that and find everywhere it appears in the document, as opposed to trying to read it and find it every place in the document. So filtering and search is much easier if we have a document that we can do that.
Yes, you guys are gonna provide that?
Yes.
And I think, for next meeting, I think the most important thing is going to be us laying out what that plan is, so that we can attack it methodically and quickly, because time is going to be of the essence once we get.
You're gonna see this summer gonna go very quickly. One meeting, you could probably do 6 sections easily. Section 1, incorporation and general powers.
Yeah.
Elections, you're not changing the state elections, the town elections. You're not gonna be, your Board of Ed, your Board of Police Commissioners, library directors, some of those are gonna go very quickly for you. Miscellaneous, calling the meetings and
Brian and I will try to build a schedule for you and tie all the resolutions with the different sections.
Yeah, we'll write it as we go. Part of my thing is, my goal is to have a working document as we go. If we talk about something, I'd like to have some consensus if we get there, this body, of what you're going to want that section to be, as is, with this change, with that change, rather than just talking about it, and then at the end, the last meeting, say, now we gotta vote, no one remembers, and we're all confused. This way, let's do it as we go along as a working, living document. We can go back, of course, but this way we'll keep track of what you're doing as you're doing it.
We'll be able to move the screen right in front, so as Brian's typing, you'll be able to see everything live.
Excellent. Okay, that sounds good. Do we have a consensus, as a directional consensus administratively for the board, or the commission, I should say? Okay, that sounds like it's resolved. Something that I wonder, I believe the last commission did that, certainly, Selectwoman, you can say if I'm wrong, or anybody with, I do not have prior knowledge of the last commission, that we send a letter to every department head within the town, so that, say, hey, do you have anything that you want to bring forward, or during a revision of the charter as needed, is there any recommendations that you would like to bring forward, and give them the opportunity as a department head to either come to a meeting or send us something in writing?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman, at the last senior staff meeting, the department heads were informed, as well as the financial summit, to start reviewing the charter, that they could potentially be called on by the commission. So they're all prepared if and when they are called. And if there's anything that they would like to see, they'll put that forward.
Okay, excellent. Does that indicate to our commission members that we are going to, in fact, call each department head? I know they've been told, but we don't want to leave anyone out, so that could get dicey, being that I don't think we can or should pick on just one. It has to be blanket. So I hear what you're saying, they were told. However, should something come from this commission? Yes.
Through the chair. So, yes, we'll get you letterhead so that you can send it to a blanket to all the department heads, as well as to the chairs of all commissions that are called out in the charter. So you're being fair across the board. We're not just picking on town, but and not just looking at the departments in the town, but we're looking through any committee or commissions that are called out in our charter and speaking to them as well. We have a parks department, we have a recreation department. You know, a lot of times they work together, so they may give you some ideas of maybe we should combine these departments together. Who knows? But I think if we're going to send a letter out to the department heads, like we told, it should come from your board, as well as to all our committees and commissions. I think our commissioners, our police commissioners, our fire commissioners, our recreation department, our parks department, culture and arts, whatever's called out in this charter should be looked at as well and spoken to them as well.
I said it very badly, and that's exactly what I wanted to do.
And I
It's
think they need
perfect.
to respond, even if they have nothing. They need to respond.
Yes.
We need an answer, just for transparency purposes, right? They need to say, thank you for the invitation, blah, blah, blah. We have no recommendations at this point. We're fine.
So with that,
Or-
you could
or
put in the
within-
letter, say, please respond to us within 14 days.
That sounds good. Thank you for telling me what I said, because I needed that. Does that sound like a direction?
Sounds fine.
Sounds good.
Okay, we will be doing that. We got a letterhead, and we send it to everybody, so we all know. And we'll give them a time frame. It's not gonna be in the middle of June, you come in here and say, no. We also may want to, as needed, invite them to come in. We may want the Board of Education sitting there. You're invited to come, by the way, to a meeting, rather than you just send it in to us and that's it. You're invited to come to a meeting and sit before it. I thought it was a good idea, but I'm kind of reluctant that we have a subcommittee meeting with them. That could get into FOI stuff, so I don't think that's a good idea, Tom. Tom being me. You get FOI if you send subcommittees out, and then you get a problem, so.
And I'll have Kurt send over town letterhead over to you, so you can send out the letters.
Okay. And you'll help us send that, Kurt, to get them all out?
Yeah, if the commission has a specific letter, if they just want to send an email draft of it, we'll get it put together and sent out for you.
specific?
We'll do all the admin stuff for you.
I'll let you use your discretion. Unless someone else on the commission wants to do that, I leave it to your discretion, Kurt.
To actually write the letter?
No, I don't
Can't
think
do
you.
that?
No,
Yeah.
he cannot do that.
Yeah.
So what you could do is you could draft a letter. He'll put it onto the letterhead, and he'll send you the draft of the letterhead, draft of the letter on the letterhead for the board to review. You guys okay it, then you will have to send
Okay.
it out.
Anyone on the commission want to do that, draft it? Anyone? Volunteers?
I'll take a look at it.
Okay.
Remember, it comes out from you though, so it has to have your sound to it.
Do I have to use the right words, spelling?
Well, I'll do my best.
No problem.
Punctuation's important, spelling's not
Wait, we
quite
got a
so.
journalist
Spelling's not
here.
quite so
Make sure.
important. Punctuation is key, though.
Hey, yous, we're having a meeting. Is that the way you want to read?
Okay, excellent. Any other, I will say administrative things, as far as the way we conduct our business? Administrators, I said, sent letters out. We had great ideas as far as reviewing the charter one by one, interfacing, in fact, the thoughts of the select board, and then also the thoughts of our select board members. Anything else as far as administratively, the way we want to move this board forward? Any suggestions? Well, let's talk about them. I also ask our selectwomen suggestions,
Just
our council
a quick,
suggestions.
quick question for council, actually, is, you said there's sections that we definitely cannot change, or
Well, they're gonna require little work. on
Or
your
very
part,
little work.
And I anticipate little that you can do, the incorporation of the town.
So,
that kind of
can you make a list for us of those sections, so we're not spinning our wheels for hours thinking, hey, I'm gonna change this and make this so much better, and then, is that already?
No, I guess I could. And kind of, if you look at things, for instance, chapter 1, incorporation of the town. You're not changing that, you're incorporated. General grant of powers, that's not going anywhere, most likely. Something to do very quickly. You have your Board of Education under state statute. I'll tell you what state statutes require and what, if anything, you need to do. Your Board of Library Directors, I'll tell you what the state statute says about that, and whether I'll make recommendations if something's wrong against the state statute. But there's some that are going to be pretty easy, you'll know. Let's see something else. And some are going to take more time. Finance and taxation, chapters 14 and 15, I think will take time. Chapter 16, minority representation, that's easy, there's a state statute. Some of the things we'll be able to go through much quicker than others. Chapter 18, miscellaneous. Some of those that may not be too much time at all. So, we'll talk about those. You'll kind of see as you go along. I think your big ones are going to be basically the financial process of the town. If you want to make any changes to the budget process, your adjourned town meetings, your special town meetings, those kind of things, or change the timing of those activities, how much time is allowed for all of them. And second, if you want to change your form of government, it was suggested by someone that the form of government be changed. And that's a significant discussion for any municipality. If you're switching from your Board of Select Persons, Board of Finance, form of government to something else.
And that could be a big nut to change. Opinion only, that to
It's a big
change
change.
our,
It's a
from a
significant
select
change.
to town manager, that's a big nut.
You
So,
don't see that very often for a town to change its
Yeah.
form of government to a town manager form of government or another form of government. That's a significant change. And it has far-reaching tentacles once you do change that.
that's my point. It's something that, can we tackle that one? Yeah, however, we'll be here for the next 10 years. Opinion only.
We'll discuss it, and then
We'll say,
we
no.
will discuss it. We have to address it, and we'll submit it, and then we will discuss it.
Any other thoughts? Certainly doesn't only in tonight, the direction we take administratively, we got some great ideas. We're gonna be sending a letter out, taking our charter bit by bit. Anything else as far as how we're gonna proceed with this commission? Yes,
What I'll
Mr.
do is something else
Counsel.
I thought of. I will give you the questions from the last time we did this in this town.
Okay.
in Seymour. what the questions were what the recommendations were that were actually presented to the electors. And what the vote was, so you could see the town, the thoughts of the voters at that time on certain topics. You can get a little feel for what they did.
What year was that?
Was it 18 or 19?
Yeah, 18 or 19, I think 2018.
Yeah, I think it was maybe 18 went into effect in 19, I believe.
So the demographics have probably changed a little bit in the town, would you say?
What year did we do it?
18.
And it's 2025. We've grown about 2% each year, but I don't know if the demographics have changed that much.
I've looked at them. There's a couple of repeats. I'm not sure why the grammar one didn't pass, but that's okay.
And just through the chair, if I may,
Still befuddles me to this day. I don't.
through the chair, if I may, just remember that we do follow Robert's Rules of Order, and Vice Chair Peck is a parliamentary expert on Robert's Rules of Orders, so any questions, feel free to pick his brain.
No problem.
Until my head collapses, then stop picking.
I do enjoy Robert's Rules of Order, being on the Board of Ed, Chairman of the Board of Fire Commissioners. Other things that I run is I love the Robert's Rules of Order, so yes. And we will follow Robert Rules of Order on this commission, certainly. And we can help each other out, certainly, if we're going astray. And we don't want to make a mistake in that area. We don't want to make a mistake on FOI. And they're difficult mistakes. Okay, any other administrative direction we think we may want to go? Anything else? Okay, we are starting to, next we look at public comment. Is there any public comment tonight? I'm not seeing any going twice, going 3 times. Public comment? I hear none, we'll close under that. Commission members' comments? Anyone in the commission want to make a comment at all?
Just looking forward to seeing what this commission can do for the town.
Sounds good? Okay, my only comment would be, appears as though, and certainly it's going to be in the minutes, some of the things in essence we resolved to is that Richard did write a letter, draft a letter that we're going to be sending to all boards, commissioners, and everyone in the town of Seymour.
Let's rephrase that. I'm going to draft a letter for your review.
I agree with that.
And then that will be the letter that gets sent.
I just said
forward.
draft a letter. I said nothing more after that.
There you go.
So draft a letter. I will review it, certainly. And can you email it? No
I
problem.
can, as long as you can give me an email
I can
address,
give
I
you
can
an
do
email
that.
address, and you can send it as a Word doc or whatever way you want to send it.
Absolutely,
Oh,
perfect.
wait a minute. Can we do that?
Yes.
I can do that. Okay. I was thinking, okay.
And also,
You
once
just can't send it to the whole commission saying,
Right.
everyone, please look at this and give me your comments.
Okay.
Now you're having a real meeting.
Okay.
And through the chair, if I may again, please, excuse me, just make sure that the office of the first select person has everyone's correct email address, so when the agenda goes out, everybody has the agenda and the packets, because they do send it out electronically. So just email over to Stephen or Kurt, and they'll make sure, they'll send you a test email, make sure it's an accurate email, and we'll send everything through that.
Okay.
Because we don't drive by the houses any longer and put the packets in the mailboxes.
You know you have mine, Kurt. We've already interacted.
Is there anybody who did not get what was sent out last
I
week?
did not get the last one. But I got, so I'm not sure where there might have been typo in the email address, because you and I have you've emailed
Yeah.
about the
Other stuff, yeah.
This is me thing. But I didn't get this one.
Yeah, I'll just double check everything.
And please resend it. Thank you.
Okay, the second item that we came to consensus on tonight, just as a review of tonight's meeting maybe, is that we're going to go section by section on the charter and interface any notations and resolves from our board, any notations that was given to us in the packet of individual board members. And then I think the last thing is our council is going to give us some of the last recommendations from this last commission. Is there, and certainly homework for all of us is to start reading the charter, read some of the notations from our select people, and also certainly the resolves and be ready to discuss and be out of here between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, and I'll call it an end as necessary so that we do get out of here. It's a great point. Anything I've missed as far as what we, in essence, have accomplished tonight?
We're also meeting second Tuesday, fourth Wednesday, every month. Correct.
Second Tuesday, fourth Wednesday, and the next is in fact going to be a public hearing at 6 o'clock.
February 11th.
February 11th, and Kurt is going to handle getting all the proper notifications out. Okay?
Who does the agenda for that?
I do.
You do the
Yep.
agenda? Okay.
Any other notations by anyone on the commission?
sir.
Anything else? Anything that we've missed? Any other directions we should be going? I'm hearing none. Okay. I think we're up for adjournment unless anyone sees it differently. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion is now carried. Meeting is adjourned.